Tonight, a Labor minister resigns from Cabinet over branch stacking allegations after damning evidence at IBAC. Also tonight, trials for a vaccinated economy begin in regional Victoria.
We are preparing for what is going to be inevitably rolled out across the state.
Sydney-siders celebrate the taste of freedom. And the transplant world record at the Alfred Hospital that could have big implications for many. Good evening. Tamara O'Dine with ABC News. A public anti-corruption hearing has been told that branch stacking within the Labor Party is widespread and out of control. The first witness at today's IBAC hearing dropped Victorian Labor Minister Luke Dinellan into the frame, and by this afternoon he'd resigned from Cabinet. The inquiry is probing the misuse of taxpayer-funded staff and community grants. Here's state political reporter Bridget Rollison.
One corruption investigation, 4 MPs. Aged Care Minister Luke Dinellan had little to sing about today after becoming the 4th Labor MP to quit Cabinet, accused of branch stacking. In a statement, Mr Dinellan says he accepts he breached party rules while a minister, but he never misused funds or resources in any way. His resignation comes hours after federal MP Anthony Byrne told an IBAC inquiry Mr Dinellan paid for other people's party memberships.
I thought the party was completely out of control. I saw things and heard things that I just didn't think that I'd ever see.
It was in Mr Byrne's electorate office that secret recordings of Adam Somyurek were filmed, which helped spark the inquiry.
Pressured to forge signatures.
The member for Holt took the stand as the first witness and dropped bombshell.
And I just want to ask you about whether you've had an involvement in branch stacking, Mr Byrne.
I certainly have.
After bombshell, claiming former ministers Adam Somyurek and Marlene Kairu had a relentless focus on stacking Labor branches.
Referring to branch stacking, I'm referring to coercion of staff being made to do things that they didn't want to do.
They are very troubling. They are very troubling because they go to the heart of the state government.
IBAC is investigating the misuse of taxpayer-funded staff and community grants after a 9-network investigation alleged industrial-scale branch stacking in the Labor Party last year. IBAC's lawyer said after the Red Shirts rorts in 2014, no one would have expected the misuse of public money to continue in the Labor Party, but it did.
IBAC obtained information which suggested that there continued to be premeditated and systematic rorting of taxpayer resources.
Adam Somyurek, Marlene Kairu and Robin Scott all deny they were involved in branch stacking. But this investigation, which has already claimed 4 ministers, isn't going away for the Andrews government anytime soon, with public hearings expected to last 5 weeks. Bridget Rollison, ABC News, Melbourne.
State political reporter Richard Willingham joins me now. Rich, it was a big day at IBAC. How has the Premier and the government reacted to the fallout?
Well, I think across the Labor Party and throughout the government, jaws were dropping this afternoon with this evidence, and then with quite shocked that Luke Dinellan has decided to resign. And the Premier has accepted his resignation. And in his statement, he wouldn't comment on what's going on before IBAC, but he was full of praise for Luke Dinellan's performance as a minister, particularly in aged care and for vulnerable children and people with a disability. But this has got people around the Labor Party nervous. As you noted in Bridget's package, these hearings are going on for 5 weeks, and there's concern about how widespread this investigation might go. So far, it's sort of focusing on the moderate faction of the Labor Party and those around the southeast of Melbourne. But there's others who are a little bit nervous about whether this will extend into other factions, other parts of Melbourne. Branch stacking is mainly a problem in the city, not in the regions. So this is something that's going to weigh heavily on the government. People are a bit nervous. People are also saying that the normal chatter between different people in the Labor Party has quietened down as people prepare for what could come next. Now, there's going to be more this week, 2 more days of hearings, including from staffers. We don't actually know the full list of who's going to appear later in this program, if you like, but certainly something for the government to worry about. And it's unlikely there'll be a replacement for Luke Dinellan announced quickly, given just how far and wide this investigation may go. Tam?
Richard Willingham, thank you. Trials for how Victorians will live, shop, eat and socialise once vaccination thresholds have been hit have begun in regional Victoria. But it comes as more cases pop up across the state. There were 1,600 new cases announced today, a little lower than in recent days, but too soon to say if the curve in Victoria is bending. Very sadly, there were 8 more deaths. The youngest was a man in his 40s from the Port Phillip council area. Just over 85% of eligible Victorians have now had 1 dose of a vaccine. 58% have had 2. And while some are happy to do more now vaccination numbers are rising, several regional outbreaks are showing no signs of slowing down, as Jared Whittaker reports.
The Bendigo Art Gallery is renowned for bringing the best of the art world to regional Australia. But you now need more than just a ticket to see it.
We are already checking IDs, we're obviously checking QR codes that people have checked in, and now we'll be checking for vaccination status as well.
It's one of 14 sites in Victoria taking part in the Vaccinated Economy trial as the state sketches out a post-lockdown future.
We think overall it's a positive step, and at the gallery we are preparing for what is going to be inevitably rolled out across the state.
The Victorian roadmap to deliver the national plan is both ambitious but also cautious to make sure that as we open sustainably.
But in other parts of the state like Mildura, which recorded another 36 cases today, bringing the local outbreak to 95 cases, emerging from lockdown seems treacherous.
I think it's become quite a drag on the community. I think all those months of being locked down when there was no cases, we always said that when there were cases we were going to lock down, and we've done that.
We expect there to be more cases over the days ahead, but I think we're always better off grabbing it early, trying to get it onto the ground as quickly as we can, and as soon as we feel we've got confidence over all of those cases, we'll want to get the place opened up as soon as possible.
In Gippsland, the Baw Baw Shire is also experiencing a rise in cases, but it hasn't been placed in lockdown.
To see those spiking now into small cafes, into nurseries, those sort of places now being affected, it's a real concern, and people are very worried.
For cafe owner Rebecca Demagay, opening up while cases are increasing is too risky. She's decided not to have indoor dining, even though she can.
We just kind of felt a little bit worried that maybe we're next and we would run the risk of having to close down. And so I thought we'd jump ahead of that.
Across Gippsland, businesses say many workers are reluctant to return to work for fear of being exposed to the virus. The first steps are being taken to reopen the state, but in many areas, those steps are nervous ones.
Workers and people that are frontline and people that are dealing with the public every day in coffee shops, sandwich shops, they are naturally quite concerned.
The Vaccinated Economy trial will last until Melbourne emerges from lockdown, which is predicted to be in 2 weeks' time. Jared Whittaker, ABC News.
All eligible Victorians can now receive the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines at state-run vaccination hubs. The change means Victorians over 60 who were previously only able to receive AstraZeneca can access an mRNA vaccine at all mass vaccination clinics. Moderna will also be available to those without a booking at 14 select sites, including the Royal Exhibition Building and Sandown Racecourse. Officials say the outbreak in Hume in Melbourne's north is stabilising due to high vaccination rates, but the city's southeast is still an area of concern.
The city of Casey had the highest of any local government area yesterday, with 174 new cases, and neighbouring Greater Dandenong had the 4th highest after Hume and Whittlesea with 109 cases.
Of the 677 Victorians in hospital with COVID-19, 94 are on a ventilator. Northern Territory Police have summoned 2 Victorian men to appear in court for allegedly using fraudulent documents to sneak into Western Australia to attend last month's AFL Grand Final. Police say Hayden Burbank and Mark Babbage travelled into the NT from regional Victoria in September before heading to WA for the Grand Final. And while in the Territory, it's alleged the pair obtained driver's licences and bank statements indicating they were NT residents and not Victorian. This allowed them to enter WA amid the state's tight COVID restrictions. They were arrested in Western Australia last month and remain on remand pending a court appearance on Wednesday, and they're due to face the NT allegations at the Darwin local court next month. Well, across the border from Victoria, millions of fully vaccinated people have hit the shops, the hairdressers and the gym now that Sydney and the rest of the state is out of lockdown. Their lockdown stretched for 107 days and many couldn't wait and were out the door right on the stroke of midnight. Ashley Raper reports.
It's not a new year.
3, 2, 1,
but it is a new start for the state. And after 15 weeks of lockdown, there were those who couldn't wait to spring into action. At a minute past midnight, the doors opened to the fully vaccinated.
1 BB, please.
While some opted for a celebratory drink, others caught up on personal maintenance.
It was quite common to see people with hairstyle that you didn't think they could possibly wear.
We have a busy night ahead. We're doing pretty much a 21-hour hair marathon, which is very exciting.
The new Premier started his day with a haircut. So did the opposition leader.
It's good to get rid of the mullet.
With his fresh do, Dominic Perrottet marked the state's reopening with a beer with his ministerial mates.
It is a freedom day. It is. I mean, people are going out for the first time. Businesses are opening up. But that means it needs to be done in a measured and safe way.
There are rules and requirements for customers to check in and prove they're vaccinated. The government wants to incorporate a person's vaccination status in the Service New South Wales app, but it's not ready yet.
Yeah, it will be a two-stage process rather than one stage, but let's not let perfection be the enemy of the good here.
Last week, Dominic Perrottet tweaked the reopening plan to give greater freedoms. And today, the Everest horse race was allowed to double its crowd capacity to 10,000, a request that was knocked back under the Berejiklian government.
Although there have been some loosening or bringing forward of some of the easing of restrictions, I don't think it'll have too major an effect on the overall trajectory of opening up and COVID cases in Australia.
There are 496 new cases and 8 more people have died. More than 90% of the adult population have had 1 dose of the vaccine, 74% have had both. The government has made no secret of the fact that it expects cases will rise with the reopening. Dominic Perrottet insists that under his leadership, his focus remains on the health crisis, but there is greater emphasis on the cost of this lockdown on livelihoods.
We need to open up. We need to get back to the way life was before, and I'm very confident we have the structures in place to ensure we do that safely.
We're supportive of opening up for those that have gotten vaccinated. That was always the promise.
A bipartisan approach for a state to recover and rebuild. Ashley Raper, ABC News, Sydney.
As lockdown states begin to reopen, the federal government is scaling back disaster payments supporting workers who've been stood down. But economists are concerned that some sectors will struggle to bounce back under ongoing restrictions. Daniel Ziffer reports.
Hamish would normally have